Thank you everyone for joining, and thank you to the panelists for coming here. I'm gonna do a short round of introductions to keep the introductions short. Like, I'm Richard, I'm one of the co-founders of Safe, but more importantly, we have Christoph, who is one of the founders of Pimlico here. We have Draw from EF, who is one of the authors from 4337, heavily involved in most of the standardizations around account abstraction at Ethereum. Francesco from MetaMask, and yeah, I think the exciting part for me here is we have a nice distribution between the stacks. We have Christoph more on the dApp side, Francesco more on the wallet side, and then on the protocol side, Draw from the EF, right? So why did I do the intros? Because actually the first question that I want to ask to all of you as like the introduction warm-up round, why is account abstraction and or 7702 so important for you? Why does it play a role in your day-to-day life? And we start with MetaMask.
Yeah, I'm double mic'd. I don't know, something is not working. But yeah, I mean, I'm leading developer relation at Consensus, so the mother company. MetaMask is one of the products. Super excited also about Linea, the zk-KVM. But let's go back to the question. I think like obviously we need more US component. We need to actually like facing the reality that this world is not just about protocol developers, but it's also about dApps developers. So we want to actually build environments, CLIs that are actually allowing dApps developer to build good front ends and good onboarding for the users. So I'm definitely very excited about, I think one of the first big wave of innovation around getting better kind of like usability. And I think 7702 is definitely like pioneer this and bringing a lot of like new kind of functionality. Obviously now is all about batch transaction, but we see already dApps that care about UX adopting it. So I think it's super exciting and we're evolving in the right direction.
Okay, actually I don't have much to add except that, yes, it is a usability feature. What we are looking is how to do it at the protocol level to keep the system decentralized. Of course, everything you can do with a centralized servers. So we try to make sure to add into the core protocol the usability feature. It's 4337 for account abstraction and 7702 as a way to add most of those features even to plain EOA accounts.
Your original question was, why are smart accounts, why is account abstraction important? And then 7702. The most concise way I've sort of practiced of explaining this is that before smart accounts, you basically had a choice of do you care about self-sovereignty? Do you care about owning your private keys completely? Or do you care about user experience, right? If you care about self-sovereignty, you save your private key somewhere, you save your seed phrase, and you have to guard that and obviously unlock it every time and go through all that trouble. If you want the actual user experience, you go to a centralized exchange. With smart accounts, you get both the self-sovereignty and the usability together. With 7702, this is important even more because this EIP, in a practical sense, makes it very easy for existing wallet users to upgrade to get a lot of the functionality, the user experience benefits of smart accounts, which was not possible before. So this is how I would sort of do it in a concise way. Yeah.
So if it's so important and if we are so excited about it, why does it take so long, right? Like we started 4337. I mean, it has been a while since we started this, and even 7702, why everybody says it's a 15-minute thing from Vitalik, right? Like it actually was 3074 before, but took, I think, 4 years to really come to a point. Why does it take so long? Why, like, it's so important, everybody is excited. Why doesn't it move faster? Like,
because the bottleneck is not on the on-chain level. These on-chain things, whether you're using what smart account you're using, is it using this specific protocol change or not? That was like, obviously that needs to be solved, but the real difficulty in getting people to adopt smart accounts is more on the tooling level side of things. So for instance, I want to drop in an EIP, which I think we'll be talking a bit more about here as well, which is this EIP called 5792, right? This has EIP at the start, but it's actually more of a standard. It's more like kind of like an ERC-ish. And this defines a new way of allowing dApps to communicate their intent of what they want the wallet to do. And this is something that's been really missing. So before, for instance, dApps had no way of asking wallets to do a batched transaction unless they controlled the wallet itself. They had no way of suggesting really, in a very standardized way, that they wanted to use a sponsorship mechanism to actually pay for the gas of the user. There was obviously ways like, Safe came up with ways of like embedding the app into like the Safe UI to do this to some extent, but there was no widespread way. So I would say, without that, it doesn't matter if your user's account is a smart account or not, if it's a 3074 account or a 7702 account, because no matter what functionality it had, there was no real way of the dApp being able to use that to benefit the user.
Okay, I think contrary. The problem was account abstraction was something that Ethereum wanted from the beginning. From the early start, Vitalik simply had to publish something before he could get it done. And there were several EIPs try 86, I believe, and 3074. The problem is that all of them had serious security problems. There was denial of service vectors. The reason we opposed 3074 was not because all the good things it did. It did a lot of things, actually everything that eventually was done with 7702. The problem with 3074 was it opened a denial of service attack on the network. Block builders could not protect themselves. They could be easily attacked. Not easily, okay, but it could be attacked. Like a massive denial of service on the network. This is the reason we had to compromise until we have to try until we found something, until Vitalik came in 7702, which is, it can be used for denial of service, but they can be mitigated. With 3074, you can't mitigate these issues. Yes, you do need an interface and RPC call like 5792, and yes, the work on that accelerated when 4337, 7702 were on the way. There was no need for this RPC call before there was an infrastructure to handle it. So yes, it was completely required and it was good it was done, but the reason it took so many years was denial of service attacks. It took us time to hash out all the issues, how to prevent them.
But I mean, there were smart accounts before 447 even, before...
No.
So there was like
smart
Argent, for
account,
instance.
no.
Safe.
It's not an account. When I say an account is something that on-chain doesn't depend on any external entity like a relayer to submit its transaction. It can either sponsor itself, it can delegate its payment to another entity, but it is not required to. And 4337, because it's not a core protocol, is not really doing, you might say that bundler is a kind of a relayer, but bundler are built in a way that they can be in a mempool, just like nodes. So in that sense, it is decentralized protocol and you are not locked to a specific server. Any other protocol, like Safe. Safe had a relay for a very long time. But it is not an account in that you do need an account with gas to pay for your, or a relayer, to submit your transaction. Later it upgraded it. It said now it is an account once you add a decentralized module like a 4337. On top of 7, I don't know if they support 7. So 7702, by the way, by itself is not a new account. The account is EOA. If you want to delegate the payment to another mechanism, you need protocol like 4337.
Richard, I think like it reminds me now the Builder Night in Tokyo that we had about the spiciness.
It's an interesting one. I mean, there's a lot of topics, and I think we can see how we define accounts, how different it is. Still coming back to the original, why is it complicated? I mean, this is an indicator why is it complicated. We saw from, I mean, we see dApp side, even protocol side. From the wallet side, why only now?
Yeah,
why not earlier?
I think like also there are, it's quite complicated because there are also different stakeholders in the game, right? I think also like we don't want to kind of upgrade to smart account without, kind of like forcing behaviors and kind of like needs for users. I think the two things, and we touch on a little bit like, do we need private keys? We kind of like, I mean, that's the title, right? Killing private keys. I think like those two things are not kind of like mutual exclusive, right? We want to make sure that we are not forcing people to just upgrade their smart account, but at the same time, making sure that people are availability of like new interesting features. And I think like you see already kind of like the apps adopting or getting kind of like later in the game. But it's just very interesting to see because when I see also there are different stakeholders, there are a lot of people also criticize a bit like things about kind of like delegation rights to do things. There is more entry point to actually like to be hacked. I mean, it's also like interesting. And also there are new debates. I don't know, like I'm not deep into kind of like these sub-accounts kind of things. I just saw like Pedro speaking about now the third kind of like behavior around we should actually go with a third option, sub-accounts. I'm not sure about like flexibility and if it's fitting about this panel narrative, but yeah, I think also, we are getting there, but in the same time there is a lot of like different debates and a lot of stakeholder, and we want to make sure we are shipping something that is kind of like reliable and is not forcing a customer a decision, right?
Yeah, you're actually mentioning an interesting topic where it's like we see change coming from this, right? Like, and I mean, you talk to a lot of teams when it comes to Pimlico that wants to build on top of, let it be 437, but probably also 7702. Yep. Do you already see different questions coming from the developers that have dApps or integrated wallets, or is it still all the same? Or have they already embraced 7702 and see this as a better way towards full account abstraction?
Some of my time nowadays is actually going towards debunking this quite common misconception, I would say, that 7702 is somehow competing with 437. Right? So 7702, just to clarify, it turns your existing account and gives it smart account features. 437 is a standard for smart accounts that lets them plug into a very diverse, widespread ecosystem of relayers and paymasters and gas sponsorship modules. So I've had people asking, like, oh, should I use 437 or 7702? I mean, very likely, in most cases, the answer is you can just use both if you really want to, right? One of the main benefits that I've seen from this whole wave of 7702 adoption and Pectra going live is just this renewed meme of smart accounts perpetuating, right? So we've seen this when 437 was taking off, where yes, people were integrating the actual standard itself, but even more, people were just really excited about the value of smart accounts. We were seeing a lot more projects, say like hackathon projects building with it. We're seeing lots more people sponsor gas, regardless if it was 437 or not. I'm seeing the same thing with this, right, with 7702, where people are adopting the necessary standards that actually, I think, are limiting smart accounts adoption right now, like 5792, as opposed to more people turning their accounts into 7702. But no, we've seen adoption in we're starting to see adoption in the dApp space, I would say. So obviously, most recent I think has been Uniswap, who's now enabled 5792, which is again the prerequisite to them being able to get the features from these new 7702 accounts. I think Relay has also enabled it. Matcha has enabled it. Revoke.cash and a couple other ones have enabled it. Obviously, there's a lot more to go, right? So this is just like tip of the iceberg, but it seems like it might be enough to actually trigger a larger cascade and actually pressure everyone else to get going with it too.
Yeah, definitely can see this. Also, I mean, it's one of the things that at SAFE we fought for a long time, probably less successful, where it's like, how can we get dApps to really embrace the advantage of smart accounts, and here really 7702 seems to be a little bit of a tipping point, which is nice to see. You mentioned the synergies between 4337 and 7702, and here I want to come back to also your point, Dror, because when it came to 3074 and even 7702, when I joined all core dev calls, that seemed like a fight sometimes. I can remember
there was the fight. With everything he said about the synergy between them, I agree.
Again,
the fight was not against it. The fight was like, we never fought, neither 7702, we fought 3074 not because of 4337, because by itself it was insecure for the network. It was impossible to secure a block builder. With 7702, it is possible. We never argued against it. And they are not fighting each other. 7702 take an EOA, added a lot of the features of account abstraction. It has an account, it has batching, it supports gas limit, it can support passkeys and session keys and many, many features. But it will always stay an EOA behind the scene. There will always be a master signature that can work, which means you cannot increase the security of your EOA. Like if you put a multi-sig, even a safe or whatever, on top of your EOA, there will always be a single key of a multi-sig that can do whatever it likes. You cannot lock resources. You can block it. On the different chains, it will always work, whether there is a 772 installation on that or not. So it is a an amazing feature-wise. It gives you all the usability features, but the security features up to some extent. You can have recovery of your passkeys or whatever, but there is always this EOA behind the scene. So for new accounts, we recommend use an SCA, a normal account. 7702 will give you a slightly cheaper installation of a new account. That's also true. But after that initial installation, it is an account with an EOA in the background, which is a good thing. You can keep it and always recover your account, but it also means that anyone who gets access to your private key can recover and take over your account. You cannot get away with that.
Yeah. On MetaMask side, I mean, also there, for me, lots of questions how MetaMask will use 7702. Maybe starting out with, will MetaMask use 7702 to support 4337?
So I mean, we are kind of supporting already on Snap side, right? There are different kind of features, and I also want to mention I'm super grateful for devs when they can start like revoking accesses. Big shout out to exactly those devs, right? Like Revoke Cache, even Uniswap now. There is a lot of like different teams. I also want to mention the fact that for user specific, right? People obviously want to kind of like have their ownership, but in the same time supercharged like with different function. And there are different needs that we're already seeing it, right? Like we're already shipping like kind of stuff like obviously batch transaction, but also like revoke accesses. Fine-graining delegation is something that is asked more and more, right? Creating like light wallets for actually like, family and friends. So yeah, I think like we are definitely on the way, but in the same time is a bit kind of like a careful situation. We want to kind of like have both of the words kind of like satisfied, because people want to have full control of what they're doing, but in the same time you have also like obviously new user and different user kind of like needs around new kind of like supercharge features. But even like gasless transaction, was something that we were not able to do that before, and I think it's great to accomplish that. And I think the space is also moving forward on that direction. I mean, I'm also excited about embedded wallets in general. I know it's another kind of like topic, but the fact that now we have Web3 auth in our family, there is a lot of like kind of like a journey that we are able to satisfy. That is not just about delegating rights to do things, but it's the entire onboarding journey, right? Doing like SSO logins or social login is a big things for onboarding kind of like new user in the space.
You mentioned, I do agree, but like a lot of features that that are super interesting that 7702 brings. Coming back to my little bit provocative question, for the relaying feature, will you rather use some? I mean, there's a lot. I know some products inside the consensus family that can do relaying, right? Like, will you fall back to these, or do you fall back to 4337 when it comes to the sponsors, transaction, and so on, or do you not know yet?
So one thing I can say is that, for example, Ryan and the team around Delegation Toolkit is doing an amazing job. They are also like, there is a lot of discussion around enabling 437 specific kind of like features through snaps. A lot of also like dApps are actually like coming with this request. But I think like fine-grained permission is definitely one feature that is asked and is something that we care about. The question is also like we are also reviewing how we can position Delegation Toolkit that is much more accessible for people to understand. So there is a lot of work being done on the Delegation Toolkit side.
Okay. What do you think in the time frame wise where you say now every MetaMask account is actually delegated and uses advanced features? Do you say this is a foreseeable future in crypto terms, please, not in traditional?
I mean, this is a good question, right? And it's going back on the titles. I don't think like we want to force people, and I think it was mentioned before, right? We want to force people upgrading their accounts. I think we want to make sure that people have still full control on their access, but also like being kind of like supercharged of this feature, right? So there is no kind of like forcing. I think it will come on kind of like on a time. I don't know how long it will take, but also like we're looking how we can leverage like Delegation Toolkit for MetaMask specific, right? Not just providing the framework. And I think the same path that happens with Snap, we will start seeing also like native integration and native adoption, right? Like the Solana Snap has been around for a long time before we were shipping the Solana native integration, right? A couple of weeks ago.
Maybe also a similar question towards you. And actually, to get everybody to upgrade to a 7702 account, we would need that to be available across all the chains. And I know that Pimlico obviously interacts with a couple chains to provide bundlers. Do you have any estimate how, like, when will there be 7702 on all chains?
I mean, I think the most important thing to look at for this is to see which chain stacks actually support them. Because at this point, most of the chains that we see and interact with use one of like a couple chain stacks. So we've seen, for instance, I think the first two chains, mainnet chains that I saw adopt 7702 were Binance Smart Chain and Gnosis Chain. Next, obviously, was Ethereum mainnet, and then quite soon after, we saw the superchain ecosystem, the Optimism superchain ecosystem adopted. So obviously, Base, Inc., Optimism, Zora, and a lot more of those chains. And actually, just today, I just saw the announcement for Arbitrum upgrading to Pectra as well, right? So I think like with these chain stacks out of the way and actually like adopting 7702, there's not really much else, right? Assuming there's going to be like a long tail that's going to take a little while, but at the end of the day, we've got, I think, the majority of sort of TVL in Ethereum already adopting it.
So we're perfectly set up. 7702 adoption will come on its own, or anything where you say?
I mean, we have, I don't want to call it, I think there's some chains which are still in the London hard fork that we support at Pimlico. And I think there's some even before London, right? So ones which don't support like EIP 1559, which is like I don't know how long ago that was, right? So I imagine there's definitely going to be ones where you can't just rely on 7702 being live on all chains. But at this point, it's like a good assumption to make for most. Yes.
What can we do to convince them to upgrade?
Probably talk to their core developers and help them upgrade, help them change the node software, right? Usually, when it comes to these issues, it's because they say like many years ago they did a fork of Geth or some other sort of core software, and they have been having trouble basically maintaining it, and they don't want to like cause a big disruption and get a lot of engineering months spent on like making these changes. So I'd say any support there for them might be quite significant.
We have talked a lot about adoption, half time more or less, right? Like, I want to talk a little bit when we say it's about the future, right? Like, where do we go next? And I think 7702 is already a good step. It's in the right direction. We want to get people to use more account abstraction features, more smart features. When we look at the protocol level, what has to happen next, Ron? Like,
in terms of 7702 or something else?
I mean, in terms of account abstraction, right? Like we say that 7702 and also 437 before it, but if we look at the protocol level, 7702 was the first real change on a protocol level that is attributed towards account abstraction, right? Like, so 437 was more ERC level, so more application level. So what is next? What is the next EIP that we need to push?
The next EIP is a native account abstraction, 7701. That we are now pushing. It still has some work to be done there. And the structure and security, which is basically taking all the features you can get from 4337 and add them at the network level. So it reduces the gas consumption because 4337 has its gas consumption on top of a native transaction. And it had some security features that it adds, but usability-wise, it's the same. Like, if you create an application on top of on top of a 437, whether it is 7702 or not, switching to a 7701, yes, it will require, of course, a contract upgrade, but that's all. All feature-wise, it should be equivalent.
I was actually, I'm not the moderator here, but I was going to ask a question about that, which is, I remember a big sell for 7701 was that it was going to be built on top of EOF, right? And now it seems like, obviously, I'm not sure how, it's not completely decided, I guess, but like EOF, the future for EOF doesn't seem super bright.
No, it's now irrelevant. It's now unrelated. We built it on top of EOF because EOF looked like the future. We built it now on top of, without EOF, directly. So technically it requires us to add one more opcode than when we thought to do it. It's built a bit differently at the EVM level. But functionality-wise, it's just the same.
So how is that different then from the old native account abstraction proposal? Because I remember there was one quite a while ago, which was then replaced by 7701 because of the EOF possibilities there.
We're getting technicalities. We did have one that is based on ABIs that requires dependency on Solidity interfaces, but this is something that core devs frown at because they don't want to enshrine any ABIs, which is called 7560. So we understand it is a good way to start. We started it as an RIP, like for L2s, not for L1s. But and it's working. We are working with some teams to support it. But the future for L1 is not in that direction. So 7701 was the way to take the account model we defined with 4337, like separation of validation and execution. Validation can be constrained in several features in order to be able to support mempools and decentralization. Account support validation and separately execution. So we need to add opcodes in order to do that. Like you have a validation function, and then after that, you can pay for the transaction. So it cannot be. So we had to define this function. It cannot be a method sig. So this is one we define it using opcode. Again, we're getting very deep. I'm not sure that we need to go that deep.
Yeah, we don't have to go to all the nitty-gritty details.
In terms of low-level technical feature, there are people who think that the next thing for 7702 is like set a permanent code upgrade, because 7702 right now is always controlled by an EOA, and it can always change its implementation or switch back into an EOA if it likes. And there are people who want to do this full upgrade of an account, like an EOA to stop being an EOA, to start to be an SCA. We believe this is a bad thing to do. It will not increase your security. You are left behind with a lot of permits that you created off-chain. It will create problems with different chains. So believe that 772 is a great feature for people with EOA to get some of the SCA functionalities. But if you really want security and if you want the adoption of the next billion people, they should not start with an EOA. They should start with an SCA.
Just also to provide context, I mean, I hope everybody here has full smart account. SCA refers to smart contract account,
yes,
right? Like so, but also maybe forwarding this question a little bit, right? Like, how should we upgrade? And there is a lot of discussion, right? Like, should it be a permanent upgrade with, or should we just migrate everybody using? Theoretically, we can use 7702 to batch migrate everybody to a new SCA account. Does MetaMask has like a vision?
Yeah, I think like I kind of like mentioned before, I think like we will never force anyone on MetaMask to upgrade or force upgrade. You will have always option to remain as a kind of like UA functionality, and if people want to kind of like benefit on top of some of the transaction, I think those are two known mutually exclusive kind of like perspective. I think multiple people will have probably like different accounts, upgraded or not, with different kind of like use case, and we see already around kind of like risk portfolio management, right? Like people are going with different kind of like use case and behavior on different kind of like needs. But I obviously like I'm a big fan of. I would love to have stuff like account recovery. I wanna definitely batch transaction when I'm playing like a Web3 kind of like game. I wanna definitely delegate action to people to do specific things, especially in governance or kind of like specific voting rights. I think like we definitely need to go in this direction, and I think that's the only way to go if you want to kind of have a minimal behavioral product. If you're even considering how Web2 is behave around dApps today, right? Even batch transaction is something that is kind of like always been natural, but the fact that we're coming here now is also showing that there is a lot of like energy for new features, and that's why also like I'm excited about all the embedded wallet kind of use case, right? Only the fact that we don't provide still SSO login or social logins for like newcomers in the space. It's still hard to understand, right? And I'm excited right now that we can propose that with the Web3 auth solution, and on the dApp side, the entire kind of like SDK suite.
Yeah, maybe related question, because you said there are different use cases that we can go for, and theoretically, or that you want to optimize for, and theoretically, to optimize for different use cases, we could say we have different contracts that we delegate for. I think I talked with Christoph earlier today that it's like, oh, Uniswap is bringing their own delegator account, and then Aave brings their own delegator account. And in my talk earlier, I was asked, do I think users are smart enough to understand where they should delegate to, right? Like, which is the best account to delegate to, which I personally answered like, we should have the paradigm users are stupid, sorry to say for this. How do you see this at MetaMask? Will there be a time where the users can completely freely choose which account to upgrade to, or where even the DApp could say, hey, delegate to this account because this will give you the perfect user experience when you interact with our DApp?
I think we need to be super transparent on what the upgrading means and what functionality you will gain from it. But I think you will have option to do that, right? And I think you want to have option actually to going back to be an EOA, or at least like having possibility to. But forcing, I don't think is the solution. A lot of people believe self-custody is extremely important, and you also don't want to open up kind of like attack vector. And there is still a lot of debate. The fact that we're here on a panel debating this is also like giving us a lot of like insights that not everyone is kind of like ready to delegate fine permissions because of like different kind of like question, and even like security. I'm not deep into that, but I also like wonder if you guys see at EF or in general, even at Safe, the fact that people are opening up, delegating account, is opening up new account vectors. It's also like something that, I don't know, it also scares me a little bit, right? Because as you say, users have also like, different needs, yeah.
Yes, I think if we go deep into the technical discussions, our last 5 minutes would not be enough for this. So actually, maybe related to this, and speaking of personal experience, like I'm interested also like who uses 7702, and that's why my last question to all of you will be, and I will answer it also first myself, like, are you using 7702? And I'm a smart account maxi, so actually I don't use 7702 because I have a smart account. All of my accounts are saved, and the only thing where I use EOAs is to sign for a safe. I don't need 7702 for this. Besides this, it's dev test account. Also, there are very little 7702. So that's why I personally don't see myself using 7702. I'm a smart account maxi. But how about you? How about you? Did you upgrade your personal EOAs to 7702?
I'm similar to you, where I already have the vast majority of my funds on smart accounts. Now, there's different tiers of smart accounts. There's the ones which I treat more as like, easy to use spending accounts, where it's just secured by passkey. One where it's like more of a multi-sig, which obviously then I want to be store more funds there. But I don't really use EOAs that much day to day. So no, I have not either.
What about you?
And just the same, a user doesn't use 7702. It's an internal feature that the wallet will use for the user. When application requests a batch, the wallet needs to use 7702 delegate to do it. Again, I don't use much EOAs, so I don't use 7702. I did try it to see that it works, but again, I don't use. If I don't have an EOA that I want to upgrade into a smart account, I have no use for EOA. The question, it's a very low level question. Users don't see the low level feature. It's not even the Intel inside. They use MetaMask, and MetaMask will support batching features because now you have a better UX with a Uniswap, one-click swap without approve. That's a feature that the wallet and the framework and the application together did for the user. It doesn't see the 7702. It shouldn't.
Yeah, I'm relating a lot to Christoph, have also different smart accounts. I think my challenge a little bit is that you start also losing control of how many also smart accounts you have, because also different apps, you're using always different apps and doing different things. So that's the only kind of things also starting to track, start kind of becoming challenges.
Cool. I mean, that kind of concludes my questions. We have 3 more minutes. First of all, thank you very much for all the panelists. It was very nice to have the full overview from the low-level stack and also getting some glimpse where we should push for native account abstraction, where we should push dApps to adopt the ERPs and what also how to utilize existing tech in the wallets like snaps, but also general use like you can try out 7702 in MetaMask, but like it's fun. We have a couple more minutes, maybe for 1 or 2 questions, if there are some.
Yes, we have 5 minutes for questions, actually.
5 minutes, nice.
Hey, I have a question. So, I think previously in discussion of this full upgrade, there was this idea of having native account abstraction on rollups before fully introducing it to layer 1. So my question would be, how do you see the current development in this? Is this still something that we as an ecosystem would like to try out, to maybe battle test, or will it also be the same as 7702? So first the package upgrade comes to the mainnet, and then everybody has this feature afterwards.
You are the best draw, right?
Yeah,
like basically, it's a question about the status of native account abstraction or rollups.
As I said, native account abstraction doesn't give you extra features. And even the security, it gives you gas benefits, and it gives you some security features that are mostly irrelevant on L2s. So 4367 gives you everything. And if you need, if you want to upgrade from normal accounts, you use 7702 for that. As I said, they work together just the same. We continue to push RAP 7560, but we switch more the effort to try to push 7701 because yes, it will benefit to have the same account type on all networks. So yeah, and it will go to L1, but it doesn't add any new features above ERC 4367. Okay, gas saving, but it's not feature-wise. There's no extra features for us to add. So the work right now on native account abstraction is mostly on L1, on 7701.
Hello, guys. Sorry to go back into native account abstraction stuff, but I was just thinking, are you working on that being like post-quantum compatible already? Because obviously there's issues with signers in the future going boom. So is that something we could use to make Ethereum post-quantum?
One of the reasons to add a native account abstraction was to support post-quantum, but not only post-quantum, any signatures type you like. Like many people use passkeys. They are not post-quantum, but usability-wise, they're much easier to use than normal Ethereum accounts. So we're not pushing all the users to post-quantum, but they will be able to upgrade their account. Every user will be able to upgrade its account to whatever smart account it likes. It can be post-quantum. 4367 by itself has problem with that because it's an ERC and the bundle themselves requires an EOA, so it's not post-quantum. Native can be because there is no inherent EOA in the system. But again, it's not by itself post-quantum, it's post-quantum ready.
Yes, I think also to be post-quantum ready, as Tor said, it's important that we actually have to kill the private key because the private key being ECDSA based is the weak link in post-quantum security. And actually, again, also as Tor said, a smart account in itself is not post-quantum secure, but it gives you the flexibility to introduce something that is post-quantum secure. I think in 1 minute, theoretically, the next talk starts. So I would say